Thanks everyone for being here. Hopefully everyone in the back can hear me. If you can't hear me, put your hand up. That's not going to work because it can't, right? So that's my UX joke. When we come to places like this, I always like to leave with something. So I want to leave with something that I can use. The talk is more about what you can take away and what you can actually apply. And it's actually a privilege to follow that last talk because everything that was covered talks about getting to a point where you can release something, be proud of it, and know that it's actually doing what you intended it to do. But where I want to kind of delve a little bit deeper is what happens when you're successful and what happens when you need to issue support and provide support in a specific way. Just a little about me. I'm back in Budapest, which is amazing. I was just here for the summer having a great holiday, so I don't usually hang out here. That's my son. We had a great time, and it's a pleasure to be back. Beautiful city. What my background is predominantly in gaming, media, education, logistics. I've been a product manager in all these amazing spaces, which is fantastic for me because it gives me a broad perspective. It's terrible for me because it doesn't give me a depth of knowledge anyway. And what I try and do is I look at the customer experience across all of those different industries and how they get affected by good or bad interactions with users. And that's not just the product. I mean, when the product is used and then the product doesn't deliver something or the product delivers in a way that's confusing to the user, there's another level of support that needs to be issued. And that's kind of what I want to do. The preface for the whole talk, though, is these are predominantly based from Australia learnings because that's where I've spent most of my life. So unfortunately, some of these maybe ideas or even concepts I might throw at you might be confusing. Just put it in the questions. I'll deal with them at the end. So the talk is why your ops tooling impacts your customers. Now, that's a really good question. And I think it's a good question because a lot of people go, it doesn't matter, I'll just stick a Zendesk in here and that'll do the job. But Zendesk is only a solution to catch some emails. It triages them. It helps teams maybe split them up appropriately. It helps you get a dialogue between team members. But it doesn't solve your problem. It doesn't actually do what it needs to do by itself. So I try and change this slightly, which is why your choices impact your customers. And the choices are what your agents or people in your support team are able to do. How quickly they're able to do it, and to what degree of confidence and accuracy. So they're the things I want to kind of just leave you with. If it changes. Am I pointing at the wrong thing? Backwards, forwards. No. Slides are great when they work, thank you. So all of this comes down to choice, which is basically that event that occurs for an agent. And the event is all about trying to understand the task, and the outcome of that understanding is a determination, which means they leave and they go, I understand this is definitely something we need to refund, or this is something we need to ship again. We need to send some new t-shirts because these ones were L's and the person wanted S. Those are all things that agents need to determine. Again, lucky to follow a talk that just discussed the whole idea of lying, because some customers will lie. Some customers will lie inadvertently. They won't understand. They might not be explaining the problem correctly. They might not be in the right headspace when they're assessing a particular task that's been asked of them in an application or a new product. And what I want you to consider is that there's this battle inside of every single team member's kind of day-to-day, which is between confidence and anxiety. They gain confidence every single time they know they closed a case or anything with success. They don't always know that it was successful, and a lack of a feedback loop about their success means that their confidence never grows. And that's up to you. If you're in charge of the product, or you're in charge of how the business works, or you're in charge how the team functions, if you never give them feedback that they're doing a good job, their confidence isn't going to grow. the opposite thing's going to happen. Their anxiety is going to grow. They're going to be wondering whether they made the right thing. Did they help the customer? Didn't they? And so these are really important considerations that I want to delve into a little bit more with some just examples, and then we'll come back to this. So 17% is the measure of time that your agents spend fighting anxiety and growing their confidence. It's not, but it is a number, and that number is something you can measure, and it's different for every single business and every single team within that business. But what's true is that there is always going to be a number. Even if it's as low as 1%, it'll always be there. Because it'll be that moment when an agent or whoever's on your team or anyone is questioning their behavior. And whether their behavior is the correct one and whether it's actually solving a problem that they wanted to. This is a very kind of popular way of looking at design and user experience. With roads and parks, it's tricky. Why? Because we do that, we spend a lot of time, we think we figured it out, and then people tell us that they actually wanted something else. To change that is a big effort. But software isn't the case. We're lucky with software. These products that we do, these digital things that we create, they can be shaped very quickly and modified. Your tooling that you give to your agents or the people that are basically supporting all of your customers, they don't even need to look good. You don't even need to make them pretty. They just need to be very functional, and they need to be in line with what the agents actually want to be doing. So, again, so blessed to be following the previous talk. Imagine observing your agents. Imagine them clicking on something, and then opening a new tab, and then another one, and then 3 more, and then jumping between them, and then finally going back to the first one. Probably not the best workflow you want to give them. But they will never complain about it because that's what they've figured out. That is their user experience. But what you can do is observe and go, why are they going to that particular place? How could I bring some of that information into another place that they could also see it in a single screen, or maybe just 2 screens? And those are opportunities because they can be quickly done. If your support team's only 100 people or only 10 people, you can even grab all of them and do a research workshop. Ask them, would you prefer if this button was bigger? Because you guys seem to miss it. The accept button's this big. Is it a problem? Bigger? And they will go, no, we're fine. Their ego is going to kick in. But what you can also do is you can just try it. You can just make it bigger. You can deploy it. And then you can see if they're clicking it. So you don't need user groups telling you that, no, we're doing the best job ever. No, you can actually say, hey, we just made a modification. Can you tell us if it's better? Thumbs up if it's better, thumbs down if it's worse. And those are kind of considerations you can do. So when you do a user testing plan, there's 2 things I would like you to think about. One of them is metrics, the other one is benchmarks. Metrics is the thing that's going to tell you if you were successful. So if your metric is, did they click the button? Great. How often are they clicking the button is the benchmark. So if they're clicking it more and the benchmark is set and you can measure those things, you can be confident that the change should remain. Are you just wanting to talk? When this occurs, and again, you can observe this because agents will just go, huh? Because they won't understand. They won't understand why this message is in front of them. And some messages are clear. Please send me a new t-shirt. The t-shirt you sent me was an L. I am not an L, I am an S. Please resend t-shirt. Clear messages. But when they're not clear, this is what happens. And again, what is the form that you adapt to get questions from people? Your customers are getting asked to fill a blank slated form, or are you actually guiding them through the process to help them get the right information to the people who can help them? They're only getting in touch because they want one of these things. They want to vent their frustration, they want you to actually help them, or they're lonely and they want to talk. And they do reach out for that third point. And when you take the time to have a conversation with them, you build a relationship. But it's up to you. Still, subjective questions do lead to results that may be quite random, meaning difficult to categorize and quantify. Not taking away from them, because they do bring value in terms of insights, user perceptions, beliefs, habits, and needs. And you can use that to improve your product, to improve your service, to make customers' lives better. Just an observation. So here's the same example with the fruit, and we're doing this, and we're going to say which one's larger. I have to preface it with at least usually. And because when we look at this, which one is larger? I've tried to give you a framework. I've tried to tell you, but the strawberry is obviously larger than the apple on the picture. But if I need to take this and imagine what it would be like in real life, then obviously the strawberry would be smaller. So definitely on the right track, getting closer to getting the information you want from your users, but not quite there yet. And again, blessed by the previous last two talks, talking about iterations. Keep improving. Don't assume that your first version will be the best and it'll fix whatever it is that you're doing. Which one's larger? Again, this is from my stock photos from Sydney. All the boats there, beautiful boats. Which one's larger? We've solved the scale problem. This is in real life. They're next to each other. Still difficult because you don't have a context or a framework. I'm saying this is difficult, and I'm saying it so that you deliberately take that on board and understand that it's not something you're going to solve, but it's something you're going to improve. And if you can take that on board, then we can kind of start going back to where we started. And looking at objective questions which can effectively help you about all of these different metrics and benchmarks that you need to know. So, what can you do? Well, you can ask better questions, write shorter forms, maybe longer forms. You can create easier to follow tutorials. Again, through the observation method, you can see what people are doing, you can see where they're failing. You can use heat maps if you want as well, they're great tools. You can also blog better content, meaning educate your customers before they have the problems that you are then solving. Make it interesting, maybe even clickbaity. Analyze meaningful data. If you're not collecting data, you can't analyze, so collect meaningful data prior to analyzing it. And define flows that are actually important. Identify what problems need to be solved ahead of other problems. Which problems have bigger impact on your customers. Don't treat all the emails the same. But if you need to simplify it even more, then these are the only two things you need to do. You need to simplify what matters, be clear on what matters. You also need to remove the rest. And sometimes that's difficult because a lot of effort went into building certain features or items that you don't want to remove because someone built them, but if they don't serve a purpose, it also helps to simplify the process. And if you simplify, and I know I'm doing a sales job, but if you simplify, it can lead to automation. And that's a good thing. Although automation is not the means to the end, it's not the kind of be-all and end-all, I think the best thing for you to consider is that it's the fastest way for you to iterate and improve on what it is that you're doing, which is providing really good customer service and team happiness. Last thing they want to deal with is a reoccurring problem that could be fixed with a blog post. So, how do you do it? Again, last two talks, amazing. You take what you have, you call it your champion. That's your current version, whatever it is. Process, product, whatever. And then you create a challenger, something that is slightly better, meaning you don't just start from scratch again. You just make an improvement, and you say this improvement does this because of these reasons, we'll try it. And if it's incorrect and you need to roll back, you roll back. But you're not making big shifts. Your strategy is still the same, but the application is slightly different. And that's what you want to be looking at. And that's simple, or can be simple. You can grab your team, put them in a room, write stuff on Post-its, and then try and group it up so it makes sense. What are they calling about? What's happening? Why is this an issue? Why does this keep breaking? How could we fix it? Could we fix it? Should we stop service, on this particular thing? A whiteboard session, that can be fine. A Zoom call. It's having that conversation, that initial kind of data gathering moment where you learn a little bit. And then once you know what the problem is, then you deal with the why, because these are the important things. What do you want? Be clear on that. Document it. Write it up. Share that with the team. Why do you want it? Is it because it bothers you 5 minutes a day, or is it because it impacts 5% of our customers? So it's an important part of that. And then this thing, why is it important? Is it strategic? Is it moving us towards what it is that we want to do? Is it allowing us to become what we want to become? That makes it important versus urgent. So these are important kind of questions to consider. And the goal is still the same. We started having a conversation around this. We started talking about confidence, anxiety. If you can +1 your confidence every single iteration, you're winning. If you can -1 on the anxiety levels, you're winning. And your benchmark doesn't matter, even if it's 90% anxiety-causing features. Please have a zero tolerance for adding new features that generate anxiety. It goes back to your observation or any other metrics that you use to check what is actually happening now as a result of that new feature or that change. And that's it. Thank you.